2016 has been such a great year for RPGs, and while we can't cover all of them, we want to talk about our favorites. So here are 10 of the best RPGs of 2016, starting off with number 10. Tyranny is a fantastic game that rose to the top of the Steam charts for good reason. It's basically exactly what a lot of people wanted, and scratched an itch that everybody gets every few years. What a lot of PC gamers, especially myself, want is something like Diablo that doesn't feel like just a Diablo clone or ripoff, and Tyranny does that exceedingly well. The combat actually feels very much more old school RPG. It's tactical real-time with pause combat. And there's some party mechanic stuff going on that makes things a little bit more interesting, but thankfully the whole presentation feels a bit more fresh than you might expect. Without spoiling anything, one of the best parts of Tyranny is actually its world building and its story. And there's a surprising emphasis and subtlety to how the game tackles good and evil stuff, and the choices you make not only with just the mechanics of the game, but the story itself. It's certainly not the most technically demanding game ever, so even if you're just somewhat of a PC gamer, we gotta recommend Tyranny because it's awesome. And at number 9, we have Bravely Second and Lair. This is a hardcore, difficult RPG on 3DS that has developed a cult following for a reason. It's just damn good. The basic JRPG setup you get here really shines with 4 interesting characters that you're actually going to give a shit about, but you have to upgrade and develop while you battle. It's all turn-based combat, but there's specialist classes to earn and learn, and that gives the game a deeper feel. While in some ways it doesn't reinvent the wheel with JRPGs, it's everything you really want, and it does it incredibly successfully well, and it's without a doubt one of the RPGs you should be playing on your 3DS. And especially if you didn't play Bravely Default, the original game, get on that while you're at it. And at number 8, we have Salt and Sanctuary, a very surprising but very special game. It's basically 2D side-scrolling Dark Souls. If that didn't win you over, I don't know what else will, but let me try. The game also has elements of Metroidvania-style games that make it really feel extra unique. There's lots of emphasis on backtracking and exploring the map and going back using new abilities you've learned to unlock and find new things and new areas. There's lots of jumping and slashing and fighting, and the combat is incredibly difficult and takes a lot of emphasis and cues from Dark Souls, but without feeling as much as trial and error. But it still manages to be incredibly difficult while also looking damn fantastic, with a cool art style that still manages to make the game feel dark and violent and gritty. The gameplay has a big emphasis on upgrades, buffs, and gear, making it all really compelling as hell. And at number 7, we have I Am Setsuna, a game that is basically a perfectly manufactured JRPG nostalgia trip. And while I think one of the game's biggest faults is that it doesn't do enough unique things to stand on its own, it does a really, really good job at emulating things like Chrono Trigger or some of the original Final Fantasy games. You get a great RPG here with a cool world and characters you're gonna learn and care about over the course of a pretty lengthy game, and turn-based combat with cool enemy designs that manages to keep the game pretty challenging. It's got this whole winter-timey theme to it that's very interesting, and from a visual and music standpoint, the game is unmatched. This game has some of the coolest soundtrack bits this year. And at number 6, we have Darkest Dungeon, a game that's been floating around for a few years but finally reached a full console release, so we figured we'd take the time to bring this game up again because it's really, really good. It's also probably one of the more challenging games on this list. It's all about venturing into dungeons but managing your heroes. There's tons of stats and all different little ailments and specific instances that can affect them that you have to completely manage because you don't want your characters to go insane or become alcoholics or kill each other or just be weak and afraid and not useful in battle. You have to manage all that by sending them back to the town. And all this RPG management stuff honestly plays like a classic RPG fan's wet dream. There's lots of mechanics here. It can get incredibly deep and you'll spend a lot of time with it. It's really engrossing. And at number 5, we have one of the more AAA modern type RPGs with Deus Ex Mankind Divided. While most people will agree it's not as good as Deus Ex Human Revolution, it is a really solid first-person based game with classic PC RPG elements. You're constantly upgrading Adam Jensen and figuring out new ways to get around the world while also just engaging in the playground design of different encounter areas by choosing how to tackle situations based on how you honed your skills and leveled up your character. You know, are you gonna sneak around, climb through vent shafts, and take people out from behind, or are you gonna go in guns blazing? Or are you gonna level up your speech and talk your way through something? That's what really made those Western PC-styled RPGs great, and it's really awesome that Deus Ex Mankind Divided continues that trend. The story ends on a bit of a downer, but the presentation and characters and gameplay really can't be beat for this specific type of gameplay experience. And at number 4, we have Pokemon Sun and Moon. Yeah, if you can't tell, it's actually been a pretty good year for 3DS RPGs, more specifically JRPGs. It's funny how many people actually forget that Pokemon is, through and through, a straight-up RPG. And honestly, you know the Pokemon formula by now. You catch monsters, you level them up, and you explore a world and battle your way through it. But for when we were deliberating this list, what really earned Pokemon Sun and Moon a spot on this list is the fact that it's challenging. It's probably one of the more challenging Pokemon games ever. and honestly, that was probably one of the most refreshing things about it. For the first time, you're really going to feel the need to work on your battle strategies, your attacks, how you use them, and how well assembled your team is. You're gonna have to put a lot of thought into Pokemon Sun and Moon to succeed, and that's what makes it really freickin' special. And at number 3, we have Dark Souls 3. Yeah, you know we were gonna put it on this list. There's something really special about Dark Souls games that some people just don't understand, and admittedly, it took me a long time to figure out, but it's definitely a great RPG because of its focus on raw stats, numbers, and gear. But what makes it really compelling is that there's also such a reliance on straight up player skill, because as you guys probably know, the Dark Souls games are insanely challenging, and Dark Souls 3 is no slouch. Anything from a major boss to a regular random encounter will crush you if you're not paying attention. Dark Souls is just so damn good because after you finally grind and level up and learn and persevere and get through that challenging area, you get such a rush of endorphins and a feeling of accomplishment that just is unmatched in games. And Dark Souls 3 provides that in freaking spades. And at number 2, we have Stardew Valley, a surprising game that came seemingly out of nowhere that really takes elements of something like Harvest Moon or Animal Crossing, but adds a layer of RPG feel to it that made it one of our favorite games this year. Your character is tasked with building up and growing a farm by constantly going through and planting seeds and tilling the land and doing all that stuff and earning money, but also through upgrading your farm, upgrading your tools, engaging in the in-game economy, meeting characters, going on side quests, and even going into caves and battling monsters. This is probably more of an RPG than you'd come to expect. And it's really freaking good. You'll put a ton of hours into this game. The art style, the visuals, the music, and the addictive gameplay will probably have you hooked for a while. And at number 1, we have Final Fantasy 15, our favorite RPG of the year. While it's not perfect, because no game is, every game has its flaws, and Final Fantasy 15 certainly does, it's just fun as hell and awesome and huge and just really engaging to play it. The fact that it takes so many things that sound like they wouldn't be fun in this type of game, like an open world, a car that's kind of on rails that you can't even really drive, and a more faster-paced real-time battle system, Final Fantasy 15 still manages to feel significantly Final Fantasy-ish. And the JRPG mechanics like managing your party, leveling up your skills, and managing your gear and equipment all still feel well and really work here, especially with the added layer of planning out your days and wrapping up at night and camping or staying in a hotel to level up your characters. Really gives the game an addictive and engaging gameplay loop that kept me coming back for hours and hours and hours and hours, seriously. For us folks here at gameranx, it's definitely one of our favorites of the year, and we know you might probably disagree, but we're looking forward to hearing what your favorite is down in the comments. Those are our favorite RPGs of 2016, but we also have some bonus games including the Banner Saga 2, Fire Emblem Fates, and The Witcher 3 Blood and Wine expansion. Of course, we want to know in the comments what your favorite RPGs are of the year. What have you spent the most time playing? And definitely we hope if you didn't know about a game and you learned about it in this list, let us know and definitely tell us what games you're interested in playing soon. You guys know the deal. Clicking the like button helps us out, and if you're new, subscribing is a great idea. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.